None of us have gone to husband school. Have you gone to husband school? Hey, my name is Jason, and today I'm going to be talking about the 5 love languages based off a book by Dr. Gary Chapman from 1992, like 30 years ago. At the end of this video, I'm going to tell you how you can get a free love language survey to help you figure out what your wife's love language is and what your love language is. You know, if your wife spoke Spanish and you spoke French, that would probably cause a little bit of conflict in your marriage. And that's the same concept, the same idea with love languages. Do you speak her love language, and does she speak your love language? I was literally talking to a friend of mine this week, and he's doing some marriage counseling with his wife of like 20 years, and they're talking about the love languages. It's still relevant today. So Dr. Gary Chapman says wives have like a love tank, and we need to help them fill up their love tank. But if we're not putting the right fuel in, it can cause a lot of problems. He uses the concept or the framework of like a gas tank. Now, have you ever run out of gas? Anyone? Here, I've run out of gas a few times. I don't think my wife has ever run out of gas, but I've run out of gas. You know, just hoping I can get to the next exit, and I can't. The way that we receive love and the way that we give love can be different. So he talks about how we communicate love to our wives, maybe not the way that they receive love. So there are 5 love languages: words of affirmation, giving gifts, quality time, physical touch, and acts of service. Okay, let's look a little bit deeper into each of the love languages. Let's talk about words of affirmation first. Words of affirmation are the words we speak, obviously. So it may be compliments, it may just be talking, encouraging. That's actually my love language, is words of affirmation. One way that we express love is through the words that we say, using words that build up. In the book of Proverbs, it says, pleasant words are sweet and healthy. So our words can actually bring health, can actually help build up and grow our wives if we're speaking encouraging and positive, loving words to them. If we're doing the opposite, it will have the opposite effect. Our words can be used to convey love or to convey hate. Mark Twain said, I can live for 2 months on a good compliment. I don't think we realize the power of our words. Our words can literally bring life and energy to our wives. And not just our words, not just the words that we say, but how we say them as well. How are we expressing and communicating with our wives? Is the way that we're doing it and the tone and the body language communicating the same thing? You can say something with your mouth and say something totally different with your eyes or your face or your body language. If you say, I love you, with like clenched teeth and hands and fists, you're not exactly communicating that love to your wife. So that's the first one, is words of affirmation. The second love language we're going to talk about is physical touch. And this quote is right from the book. Physical touch is a vehicle for communicating marital love. Holding hands, kissing, embracing, sexual intercourse, these are all ways that we communicate emotional love to our wives. And it can be in the simple things we do. You know, when you walk by, pat her on the shoulder. When you're driving somewhere, holding hands. Are there small, simple signs of affection you can show your wife physically that is not intense physically? Maybe when you're up early in the morning and going to work and you scoot over in bed and give your wife a hug or a kiss. She might actually not like that. Maybe just ask her if she wants you to do that. She may not want you to wake her up at 5 in the morning with a hug and a kiss. She might just want to keep sleeping. All right, so the first one was words of affirmation. The second one we talked about is physical touch. The third one is receiving gifts. And in the book, he says, this is literally like the easiest love language to incorporate into your life. Go to the store, buy a gift, bring it to your wife. He says in the book, when your wife's holding a gift, it's communicating, hey, he was thinking about me. When he was out at work today, when he was out in town, he was thinking about me. The gift communicates thought for the receiver of the gift. The giver of the gift was thinking about the receiver of the gift. One of my mentors, Heath, says a dress is a lot cheaper than a divorce. In other words, if you're buying gifts for your wife, they're probably going to be a lot cheaper than if you're going to go through a divorce and pay the price of that. Not only the financial price, the relational price and the emotional price and the mental price, etc., etc. A dress is cheaper than a divorce. So that is the third one, is giving gifts. The fourth love language is quality time. Quality time means undivided and focused attention. Maybe not while you're watching TV and your wife is talking to you. The other night, I was working on a talk I was doing for a conference. It was about this topic, actually. I was sitting at the island in our kitchen working on my slides for my presentation. My wife was over beside me and she was talking, and I could hear her voice. It was somewhere out in the universe. And I realized she was talking to me while I was working on talking about giving our wives undivided attention. I was not giving my wife undivided attention. And in the book, he says if you're like in the middle of doing work or a project and you can't give your wife that undivided attention at that moment, you could say something simple like, "Hey, honey, I'm working on this for 5 more minutes. Then I can come and talk to you. Is that all right?" So communicating if we can't give undivided attention, why we can't do it, and a later time that we can do it. A friend of mine, Dallas, says that quantity of time leads to quality of time. Quality of time comes from quantity of time. If your wife's love language is quality time, quantity of time may be a part of that. It may be walking together. It may be sitting on the couch just talking to each other, undivided, not while you're watching the hockey game, not while you're watching the football game. Giving your wife your undivided attention if her love language is quality time. That's the fourth love language, quality time. The fifth love language is acts of service. Honey-do lists may be part of this. I don't know. I have a list of things that my wife would like me to fix. And he says in the book, doing things that you know your wife would like you to do. You seek to please her by serving her. You express your love by doing things for her. Maybe she's quite open about what she wants you to do. Paint the bedroom, fix the car, get the oil change, fix the oven. Our oven is broken right now. I'm literally in the middle of this. We're waiting for some parts to show up. The boys are helping me fix the oven. Are there things you can do for your wife if her love language is acts of service? It could be cooking a meal. It may mean you've got to learn a new skill. I make a pretty mean toast, make some toast, pretty good. I'm not a cook, not a baker, none of those things. If your wife's love language is acts of service, you maybe want to learn how to cook a meal, how to bake a cake, how to do kitchen things. I did the grocery shopping the other night with my 2 teenage daughters for my wife. She's pregnant, didn't feel like going to the grocery store. I get it. Have you ever been to a grocery store? Yeah, it's not great. It's not organized very well. The stuff is never where you think the stuff should be. So I'm wandering around and we are looking for a very uncommon and difficult item, oatmeal. So we're walking through the frozen food section, me and my daughters looking for oatmeal, and I see another dad also looking for something. And my daughters always love it when I walk up to strangers in public and start talking to them. So I went up to this fellow dad and I said, "Hey there, man, I'm looking for oatmeal. Do you know where the oatmeal is?" Do you think he knew where the oatmeal was? Of course not. We're just two lost dads wandering aimlessly around Walmart looking for the oatmeal. He did have an idea though. He said, maybe the oatmeal is in the baking section, where I had already looked at least 2 times on that shopping trip. There's no oatmeal in the baking section, but I thought perhaps I missed it on my first 2 passes and I should look again. So my daughters and I wander over to the baking section and look for the oatmeal. Do you think there was any oatmeal there? There was no oatmeal there. But there was a Walmart employee. And I went up to the kind lady and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, do you know where the oatmeal is?" She pointed to the shelf almost directly beside me and said, "The oatmeal is right there." So we were standing right in front of the oatmeal in the aisle I already looked in multiple times. What was the point of that story? Acts of service. The 5th love language is acts of service. Okay, so we just talked about the 5 love languages: quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, physical touch, and number 5 is gifts. It's great that there are love languages, but how in the world are you supposed to figure out what your wife's love language is? Well, there's a few options here. One option is to ask her. There's a few questions you can ask her to figure it out if she doesn't know what her love language is. And here's 3 questions to ask your wife or to ask yourself about your wife to determine what her love language is. The first question is, what do you fail to do that hurts your wife the most deeply? There's something that hurts her that you fail to do. That is a key that perhaps the opposite would be her love language. So if you tell her this dinner was not so great and her love language is words of affirmation, that's probably not going to work out very well. And that might hurt her deeply, where it may not affect you as much if your love language isn't words of affirmation. So the first question you can ask yourself is there things I do that hurt my wife deeply? If you can think of some of those things, the opposite of that might be her love language. The second question you can ask yourself to determine what your wife's love language is, what is the thing she most often requests of you? That seems like kind of a no-brainer. What does your wife most request of you? Does she request that you do jobs? Does she request that you spend time together? Does she request that you give her a hug? It might be physical touch. Does she say, you never compliment me? Maybe her love language is words of affirmation. So what does your wife most often request of you? This may be a clue to what her love language is. The third question you can ask yourself to determine what your wife's love language is how does your wife express love to you? How does she regularly express it? Does she give you a hug? Does she give you a kiss? Perhaps her love language is physical touch. Does she give you a gift unexpectedly? If she's giving you gifts, maybe her love language is gift. How your wife regularly expresses love to you may be a clue as to what her love language is. If you don't know what your wife's love language is and you don't want to ask your wife those 3 simple questions, click on the link in the description and I will email you a free love language survey that you can do, your wife can do, you can figure out what your love languages are.